Hi, I'm Ed Marsh. Thanks very much for joining me today for this. It's going to be a brief LinkedIn Live. We're going to be talking about kind of this chicken and the egg question. What comes first? Is it marketing or is it sales? So, just a quick introduction of myself. Again, my name is Ed Marsh. I've run businesses, I've run industrial manufacturing companies and distribution operations. I now consult with B2B companies on revenue growth. I really work primarily in two areas. One is sales team improvement with middle market B2B companies. And then the other is the entire revenue growth process with industrial manufacturers. I hold Private Directors Association certificates, and I'm directorship certified by the National Association of Corporate Directors. I've been partners with HubSpot and Drift, and I understand the tech and the industrial world. I've got experience across a lot of global markets. I'm a graduate of Johns Hopkins, former Ranger Qualified Airborne Infantry Officer. I'm located in the Boston area. And so that's just a quick bit about me to give you some context as I'm talking. Now, here's a big point. Stick around to the end of this because there's going to be a barcode you can scan that will give you access to a free diagnostic that's really going to dig into some of the essence of what I'm going to be talking about today, the question of integration and phasing of marketing and sales. So let's start with this question. Which comes first? Is it marketing or is it sales? But I guess, is it really a chicken and egg kind of question? And I would argue not. I don't think that it is. And here's why. Let's back up. We're not talking about toilet paper or scotch or internet service providers. We're talking about industrial sales, often complex sales, relatively long sales cycles, often relatively large ticket value, and frequently selling to senior management, C-suite, or boards. So given that, if I can only pick one, I'm going to have to pick sales. I mean, there's no substitute for a capable salesperson who can reach decision makers, create projects, sell consultatively, manage the journey, and close deals. But why do I ask this? I ask because so often I find manufacturers tend to want to jump in the middle. I hear things like, we need more digital leads, we need more social media, things like that. What they're really saying, of course, is they need more sales. And if they had to pick one function to drive sales, guess what? It's sales. But companies often assume that the sales function is okay because it's been relatively static for a number of years. The company's grown traditionally. So they figure that piece must be at least decent. And so they're looking somewhere else for the problem. But again, we're coming back. The point is we need growth. And so that means that what we need to do is we need to grow sales. Now, I will say that even though I put sales absolutely first, there's one big exception. And that's a marketing function that has to happen first to enable sales. That's proper buyer research. I mean, nobody cares about your product or service. That's the harsh truth. It's something that gets me in trouble. A lot of people get offended when I say that, but nobody cares about your product or service. They care about how it impacts their business and how it impacts them professionally. So you need to understand how they make their decisions, what starts the process, why they choose one solution over another, and really importantly, why so often they do nothing in the end. I mean, there's a pandemic of deals ending in no decision. That's the premise of the Jolt Effect, a great book that I recommend to people to read. There's a lot of buyer indecision. There's committees, there's teams, there's decision makers who shirk that responsibility. Nobody wants to be on the hook for things anymore. I mean, here's some examples of some of the buyer research that you need to do that you see here on the list. You need to understand the buying journey. You need to understand the buying teams, often 10 to 15 people. Trigger events. What might cause them to suddenly say, hey, there's something not quite right that we need to begin to understand and quantify and diagnose and search for solutions for and implement some sort of a solution for? What are the business outcomes they're looking for? What indirect needs do they have? Not the ones they tell you about, but if we're going to sell consultatively, we're going to have to understand the indirect needs, the implication questions, if you will, if you're familiar with the spin selling methodology. This is about quantitative and qualitative buyer research. So there's no point in creating new leads, investing in marketing, if your sales people don't follow up on them. There's no point in creating marketing around value if they routinely discount. And some of the questions that we need to answer up front to understand about the sales team is, can they reach decision makers or win new accounts, sell consultatively, build relationships, prospect effectively? Do sales managers know how to coach and motivate their team? Do they actually coach, including conducting role plays frequently? Does the team follow a sales process? That, I mean, you can, I'm sure, list another 50 questions off the top of your head that we need to understand if we're really going to quantify the ability of the sales team to execute on your company strategy. The point is that a perfect website, a place that many companies jump into, oh, we need to redo our website. But a perfect website or great advertising or a fabulous trade show booth, none of it matters if the sales team isn't accountable and competent, if they can't sell. So most of the time, before a company puts a single dollar into marketing, the first thing you have to do is focus on the sales team, understand it, and quantify it. So I'll say again, if I had to pick one, it would have to be sales. However, that doesn't mean that running without marketing is viable. This Gartner graphic, I show this frequently. I look at it all the time. It's seared into my brain, and I hope it will be into yours as well. And it illustrates why. Buyers' journeys are horribly convoluted. They're 70%, typically buyers are 70% of the way through their buying journey before they want to talk to a sales rep. So marketing has to sell now too. And marketing sales have to be tightly integrated and coordinated. That creates a problem. It creates a mindset that perhaps sales isn't as important because marketing can now do a lot of selling. And maybe that's true if you're selling, some $5 item on Amazon. But going back to the premise of this conversation, that it's complex, long sales cycle, big ticket, senior decision maker, industrial sales with a lot of implications to a company. It's a long process, and marketing can't sell it. Sales has to sell it. Marketing can co-sell. Marketing can help create awareness. Marketing can help create the environment and circumstances where sales can be successful. No matter how strong you think your sales team is, though, experience tells me that it's a limiting factor. So let's look at what typically happens when a company says, okay, well, let's begin to invest in some marketing. You get something, you hear that conversation, oh, we need more leads. As I've said, we've seen this movie before. We can produce leads, we can produce lots of them, and none of them end up selling. I'm actually going to blow this screen up a little bit so you can see it. So once we invest in marketing, we try selling, we realize none of the leads are selling. Then we have to pause and we have to debate. Is it the leads? Is it the sales team? Is it the product market fit? Is it the price? What is it? What's going on? Why aren't we selling any of these new leads? I mean, let's accept the fact maybe 50% or 70% aren't high quality leads, but there's still some portion that are. And if we're not getting any traction, there's some reason. Typically, my experience is that it's a combination. But the deeper we dig, the more we realize that it's primarily about the sales team, their lack of ability to execute. And that could be lack of talent, it could be lack of coaching, it could be lack of appropriate tools. And again, often a combination. I will say that in most cases, I find that sales teams aren't even following up on most of the leads that they get, whether that's trade show or internet, whatever the case may be. The percentage of leads that are actually followed up on is shockingly low. So when we work this way, when we work serially, let's try some marketing, then let's pause, try to diagnose what's going wrong. Then we come to the point where we say, well, we need to improve the sales team. We spend some time working on that. Then we come back to marketing. We can often spend 3.5 years in order to start beginning to see some results. Alternatively, we can take a different approach. We can react, or we can investigate proactively. We can run an MRI in the sales team, figure out the strengths, the weaknesses, the gaps, etc. Then we can begin working with the sales team. And often that first work means coaching sales managers on how to be sales managers. Often they haven't had that training. It could be on building sales process and sales methodology and building out sales playbooks, and then perhaps training the whole team. Once that's rolling, doesn't mean we have to be done. Once it's rolling and we're starting to make some headway and people are starting to speak the same language and be held accountable, then we can begin to work on the marketing. And first, we're going to figure out low-hanging fruit in order to generate some leads. And while we do that, we can work on planning and beginning to put the foundations in place for some longer term strategies. I'll tell you a really simple thing for most industrial manufacturers, to just make it easy for people to request more information from every page. Typically, there's a contact us page with a long form that nobody wants to fill out, and you get some leads off of that, and so you assume it's working. But if you made that easy for everyone to do on every page, you'd get so many more leads. So often there's a lot of really low hanging fruit that allows us to do that. Now, there's a whole separate conversation. Does that really qualify to be called a lead? And that opens up a whole nother can of worms. We need a common language. We need definitions. We need to understand, again, that buying journey. We need to understand the buying team, all of that kind of stuff. So it all fits together. It's an integrated system, just like manufacturing is. But the point is that when we take this approach, we can actually begin to see some impact and some results often in 9 to 12 months by prioritizing key things and working them in parallel. And that comes again from the recognition, whether it feels natural, whether it feels comfortable, whether it feels right or not, just accepting the fact that the sales team is often a limiting factor. That's a speed governor on the growth, if you will. And so we have to understand that and fix that first, or at least get that started. So let's say that your team, you're comfortable that they're already really good. Let's say they close 30% of their qualified opportunities, and you've got a standard definition for that with good detail and criteria, so you know what qualified opportunity actually is. You've got a known average deal size, and you think the sales cycle is about as short as it can be. We can calculate then how many leads you need to generate from marketing to put enough deals into the funnel so that at your 30% close rate and average deal size, you hit your revenue target. But what if? What if by optimizing the sales team, we're able to take the close rate in 6 months to 35% and increase your average deal size by 10%? That means that you need fewer leads to hit your goal. And you can be more efficient in your marketing spend. So all of this, we have to think of it as fitting together. Each part of this has to be optimized. Further, I'd say the opportunity cost of fumbling around for the extra 2 years, if this approach maybe takes 9 to 12 months and the other takes 3 to 3.5 years, there's a lot of opportunity cost embedded in that as well. So back to this question. Marketing versus sales. Which comes first? I'll say it again. If you have to pick one, I'd say it's sales. You have to be able to close. You have to be able to engage with prospects and buyers across the buying team with decision makers and close deals. But there's so much more to do. I mean, often you start to think about it and it's overwhelming. Do you start with a YouTube channel or sales training or some TikTok videos or maybe with some PR or a new CRM or a customer portal? Where in the world do you begin? And I'll just kind of call out here. That's one of the ways that I help companies often with what's kind of like a 90-day sprint. We can very quickly understand buyers with quantitative and qualitative research, understand competitors, understand your sales team, run an MRI on them, figure out the strengths and weaknesses and gaps and the opportunity if we do some training, the place we need to focus on coaching and training, that kind of thing. Understand the company's strategic growth goals and both the owners and board's priorities. Hopefully they're aligned, but it's important to understand if they're not. And then create a roadmap with a couple different options, different degrees of investment, different timelines, different magnitudes of results, and figure out what has to happen in order to get there and balance the resources that are available. So the answer, at this point, I think should be clear. Sales, if you had to pick one, it has to be sales. On the other hand, to say that you're going to pick one is really not appropriate in today's markets. The nature of it is that we need marketing and sales working seamlessly side by side. Coming to the question I often get from people, let me quickly look over here and see if there's any questions coming in. Don't see any yet. Feel free to ask if you have some. Just drop it into the LinkedIn Live chat, and I'll be happy to answer it. But a question that I get frequently is, we can't do it all. We don't have time. We don't have people. We don't have money. I get it. Of course, you can't. That's why the company strategy, the deep understanding of buyers, the MRI of the sales team are all so important to inform a plan that will prioritize and recognize what's possible and what's important. I mean, it could be that your company's strategy is really selling a new product line to existing customers, or maybe it's targeting a new industry, or maybe it's new logos, emphasizing new logos at higher margin. Those are all very, very, very different approaches that are going to take different sales training, different sales skills, different marketing tactics. And so all of this has to fit together. You have to understand how it all works. If you could only do one, it's got to be sales. But if you think of your market that way, you're going to be disappointed. Hope this has been helpful. Enjoyed chatting with everyone today. My contact details are here on the screen. Make sure you scan the code. It'll give you access to download a diagnostic tool. It's a self-paced tool. It'll take you through just a series of thought-provoking questions about what you do or don't do right now and help you identify some opportunities. Think of it as a maturity model where in any given area, we're not going to be perfect in all of them. Hopefully we're not poor in all of them. We're at different stages of maturity across them. And this will help you understand kind of what those rows might be in the maturity model. And then you can begin to visualize what the columns might be and how you'd advance across that. And if you're interested in a benchmarking exercise to understand where you stand across these and come up with a roadmap and a plan for how you would grow in a holistic, properly integrated, systemic sort of approach that integrates marketing and sales, I'd love to chat. Here's my contact details. Thanks very much for joining me today. Hope you found some value in it and look forward to hearing from anybody that's interested.